What's going on, everyone? It's Cowdy with Money Investing. So the futures and pre-market, we are down with another fresh set of some inflation fears that are coming up. So we are going to break that down, and we are kicking off the week with a gap down in the S&P and the NASDAQ. So SPY is down a little bit over 37 basis points right now, and QQQ is also down a little bit over 0.5%. So we got 5 people watching right now. Let me know in the live chat if you guys can see me, if you guys can hear the voice and the audio without any issues. Should be working, and I've got the screen up and running. All right, so it should be working without any issues. And so we're gonna go over some things here very quickly. So pre-market, we are looking very red for a lot of companies. Some of those Bitcoin stocks like Mara and Riot, they are down substantially over 10, close to 9%. Solid Snake, what's going on? Welcome on board. We got stocks like FTFT that are down. We got Coinbase, BNGO, Lemonade, ChargePoint, Microvision. Tesla's down almost 2% pre-market. Netflix down close to 1.7. What's going on? Welcome on board. Happy to have you on board here. So we'll do this live stream for maybe about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. AT&T, it's a stock that we covered over the weekend. One of the dividend stocks that I wanted to kind of go over. Pre-market, we are up a little bit over 2%. They actually did do a deal. So you'll notice how they basically completed like a spin-off of their Media Warner deal. So BOVAC is upside, Netflix dips in early reaction. So what it really happened, let's take a look here. So they are going to be competing with Netflix and Disney Plus, right? So given choice between acquiring new media assets and spinning out a pure play, we believe shareholders are benefit by the latter. A combined entity could have access to AT&T's CNN, HBO, TBS, TNT, and Warner Brothers Studios and Discovery's HGTV, Food Network, and TLC and Animal Planet. We'll kind of go over this in just a second. I just want to welcome everybody on board. So let me know if you guys can hear me and see the screen without any issues. In pre-market, we are down. And VIX is spiking actually, so let's take a look. So let me split this 3-way. And this right here is going to be the volatility on the S&P 500, up close to over 9%, back over that 20 levels. So definitely seeing that spike there. I am staying safe. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I actually got my vaccine today, so now I'm vaccinated. So very excited about that. So yeah, I mean, Bitcoin is also down. Commodities, cryptos, if you were to take a look at those, we're now just hovering around 47,000, just under 45,000 for Bitcoin. Dogecoin just around 50 cents. And Ethereum is now under 3,500. Ethereum's, for some reason, Ethereum saw a biggest pullback in terms of cryptos, right? That's a great question, DeMarco. I have to do a little bit more research on that. Let me actually take a look at that very quickly. So let me see if I can pull that up very quickly. Because I did read something about that. Yeah, so let's take a look at where Microsoft is trading. So it's down a little bit over 0.5%. So very muted reaction, with the broader market. So not really seeing that getting priced in to that extent. This right here, of course, is going to be the complete technical breakdown. 245 is going to be the support level for Microsoft right now in the near term. And we're not seeing much of a reaction here from the markets, considering that Bill Gates is not going to leave Microsoft board. I want to go over the state of the economy here very quickly. So let's take a look at what the United States look like. So of course the unemployment numbers sitting at 6.1% right now. That's the unemployment rate. We had the change in payroll employment added about 266,000 jobs in the month of April, much lower than expected. Average hourly earnings that were up from $29.96 to about $30.17. And the reason that is because it's really difficult for companies right now to attract employees, attract workers, because right now, this right here, the amount of jobs that are open in the economy. So close to about 8.12 million total non-farm job openings, of which 7.2, close to 7.3 are in the private sector, and about 833,000 are government jobs. So we're seeing that increase in the number of jobs that are open, and we're still seeing like the unemployment rate around 6.1%. So still, a significant amount of people that are unemployed. Consumer price index jumped 80 basis points, so we already learned about that last week when we had the CPI numbers came out. PPI, that's going to be the producer price index, jumped about 60 basis points, and U.S. import price index also jumped about 70 basis points in the month of April. All right, let's take a look here. So QQQ down about 0.5%. SPY is down a little bit over 39 basis points. And let's go over some of those stocks now. So let's start with what's green. So we got AMC that's up over 3%, 3.4%. Is a squeeze happening for AMC now? Finally, is that gonna happen? Because the high from January is $20. So we're trading at $13.45. So definitely, there's momentum. There's a lot of volume picking up for AMC as well. So it's only a matter of time if you see that squeeze or not. We got Shift Technologies up over 2.8. AT&T on that news is up over 2.2%. And then right now we are down for most of those stocks. So Enphase Energy down about 23 basis points pre-market. We got Google down just about 26. Chevron, Boeing, some of those reopening plays. Energy sector down. Shopify's down a little bit. We got Visa, Delta. There are actually a lot of levered ETFs right now on my watch list that I've added because as we continue to kind of sell off and pull back, there are going to be a lot of opportunities in that space, I feel like. Because of course, when the index is coming down, the underlying index corrects, let's say 15, 20%. The levered ETFs that are down close to 35, 40, 50%, right? So if you want to take a look at these, leverage ETFs, like for example, if you take at XBI, right? Ticker symbol XBI, that's going to be the biotech sector, which is just been down. Like this is the entire sell that we've seen from 174 all the way to lows of 125, like a 27% drop, right? So that's pretty significant. We've just been trading in this downtrending channel because the small cap sector has been beaten hard. And some of the charts that we covered over the weekend as well that we are going to go over very quickly basically suggested that small caps became incredibly overvalued when we saw this huge run up, right? Relative to the mid cap and large cap space, the small cap sector was incredibly trading at a much higher forward PE, and then we saw a significant pullback and a drawdown for those. All right, let's go back to this. So DraftKings is down a little bit over 1.8%. So it's the same story. We're seeing another red start to the week. Square, Netflix, Unity Software, Snowflake, Tattooed Chef is down a little bit over 1% here. Neo is down close to 1%, $33.11. What do you guys think? Are we going to get a breakout over $34 today for Neo? What do you guys think about Neo? Tesla legit going down? Yeah, so Tesla is down, what, 2% right now, pre-market? Yeah, there's just been an increased volatility in the markets, right? Inflation fears is coming back up because this right here was the article that we actually broke down in our previous video. So let's take a look. So this was something that was posted by Bloomberg, right? So everything, the world economy is suddenly running low on everything. And then this right here is going to be the inflation numbers. So if you were to kind of take a look at this, you'll notice that we are seeing a pretty significant spike in the month of April, close to 4.2% for total CPI. Like that's where it's sitting. And again, going back, several years. I mean, this is the first time we're seeing spikes this high. Like the last time was back in 2008 when inflation actually went up. Before we saw a huge contraction in the CPI numbers before the housing bubble, burst. But for a very long time, CPI numbers have not really hit this high. And really, this right here is a projection, right? What the next 8 months are going to look like moving forward. AMD prediction. AMD, I have a strong conviction in AMD over the long term. I mean, it's really difficult for us to really go over, what the day-to-day is going to look like. But, if you do see a breakdown below what is it, $74 for advanced micro devices. Like I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it's right now it's pre-market, it's down 66 basis points. And if you go over to that weekly chart, was it? So let me take a look. So this right here. All right, so let's take a look at AMD here. So this right here is going to be the complete, head and shoulders pattern, right? So we're forming like a left shoulder, a head, and a right shoulder. This right here is going to be the neckline. So if you see a breakdown below 74 for AMD, that's going to be, technically, that's going to be pretty bad, right? And then I wouldn't be surprised if you do retrace all the way down to 59.60. That would be a very, very severe pullback for advanced micro devices, although I don't personally see a breakdown all the way down to that low. But from a techno standpoint, that is unfortunately the next support. But I would be buying, aggressively if you see a breakdown below $74. But still, I mean, this represents a lot of undervaluation for a company like advanced micro devices, right? So we've covered this on the channel quite extensively. So Venelin says, I think a lot of Tesla investors are starting to realize that NIO is a much faster growing than Tesla ever did. So yeah, I mean, NIO, right now it's trading at 1/10 of the market cap, if that. Let's take a look here very quickly. So NIO's market cap sits at 43 billion. Wow, it's come down quite a bit. So $43 billion, and of course Tesla's trading at just about 600. It might have been a little bit less than that now after the sell-off. So 568 billion. So close to about 1/11th, I want to say, is what NIO's trading at for relative to where Tesla's at. And in April, we also learned how NIO basically had a much bigger piece of the pie when it comes to the market share for electric vehicles, because they sold basically more vehicles than Tesla's Model Y, was it? And that basically is a step in the right direction, right? They're doing everything good. They're moving in the right direction. The underlying business remains strong with the earnings report that we have broken down. So in my opinion, NIO represents strong buying opportunities throughout these weaknesses and these discount prices. Lucas, thank you so much. Like and subscribe. Thank you again. So let's bring that like number count up. Right now we have 17 people. So thank you so much for your guys' support. Yeah, that would be awesome if AMD comes down to $50, 50s. That would be like the deal of a lifetime, in my opinion, for advanced micro devices. Right now, honestly, there's a lot of deals out there, like companies like Enphase Energy, Square under 200. We've got, CrowdStrike, Twilio are two growth companies that we covered, and Pinterest, three stocks that we covered over the weekend. That I mentioned that they are down close to, I think, 35% from their all-time highs. But Twilio and CrowdStrike, they're still trading at a reasonably high price to sales ratio. So you're still paying a little bit of a premium here, but the amount of growth that we foresee for those companies in the future justifies that higher multiple or higher valuation growth. So I would kind of nibble in a little bit at those prices if you've done your research on those companies, but they can more than likely come down a little bit more if the Nasdaq continues to act really, really weak. Harry, welcome. So Harry says, no sir, Tesla is a market leader, NIO isn't even profitable. Yeah, I mean, so I'm bullish actually on both, so NIO and Tesla, right? In my opinion, in my view, they're not competitors, because they're, right now as it stands, they are competing in different sort of sectors, the target audiences, right? NIO focuses more on the premium brand, and Tesla is bringing and cutting prices for different models. So in my opinion, yes, they're both in the electric vehicle space, but I'm bullish on both, because with any industry you look at, I mean, there's not going to be one single company that kind of dominates the whole world. It's going to be a handful of companies, right? So in my opinion, Amazon, if you look at Amazon and Alibaba, they're going to be like Tesla and NIO of the electric vehicle space in the future. And yes, right now there's hundreds and 200, 300 different electric vehicle manufacturers, but over time I strongly believe that the industry is going to consolidate. There's going to be a lot of acquisitions, there's going to be a lot of mergers, there's going to be a lot of buyouts, and eventually there's only going to be a handful, if that, of companies that are going to dominate in the electric vehicle space. All right, so thoughts on Peloton. Peloton, I was actually looking at that chart over the weekend. I'm not sure if I did any technical analysis. So we did break down, and this was also a head and shoulders pattern for Peloton. So actually, let me go over that here. So this right here, again, the head and shoulders pattern for Peloton. Again, left shoulder, head, right shoulder. We broke down below the neckline. 97, this right here is going to be the resistance right now to watch for Peloton right now, right? Kind of aligned with that 21 EMA. And we're getting rejected. $79 is going to be a support, and considering the other side, the MACD, we are due for some upside from Peloton. We're just seeing a bullish crossover for the MACD. The RSI is also pointing up, so we need a breakout over $97 for Peloton, and then we can worry about that 50 EMA sitting roughly at $106. All right, so let's take a look at SPY end of day price prediction. Kind of tough here. So, I mean, I still think that we're gonna see some buying pressure on the day, and this could be like a right start to the week. And we're most certainly, in my opinion, going to see some green days like in the week. Like towards the end, I feel like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we're gonna see some green days. But for on the day, like we're definitely starting off, on a bad footing here with the VIX up over 10%. Just based on some inflation fears, right? Again, that's going to be the key story of 2021, right? The whole point of that video that I put out, a couple hours ago was inflation, because this is what we're trying to understand right here, right? What the inflation numbers are going to look like. It's kind of like a fill in the blanks puzzle, like quiz over here, right? What are the inflation numbers going to look like for the next 8 months? Because that's what's going to drive the narrative when it comes to interest rates. And interest rates are going to be the economy's liquidity, right? That's the lever that the Federal Reserve can either push or pull in terms of liquidity here. The Murph says money vesting early in the morning. I love that. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right. So what do you guys think, by the way? We covered this in more detail in my previous videos, and we basically talked about whether we're going to see inflation kind of like creep up and keep going up, or we're going to see more like transitory nature kind of go up, kind of peak out, plateau, and then start coming back down once we get to like October, November, December, and then averaging going into 2022. What do you guys think? This right here is going to be scenario number 1. This right here is going to be scenario number 2. So 1 or 2. What are your guys' thoughts on this? So 2, it's transitory. 2. 1, John says 1. You got a couple 2s. Yeah, I mean, what they really did was like they basically, took like little stories, and that's what I loved about this report is that they basically took like real insight from real people and what they basically saw. And you'll notice how the first thing they mentioned was that companies are basically buying more material than they need. They're buying more than they actually need to survive the breakneck speed at which the demand of goods is recovering, and the primal fear of running out. That's the fear, is that they're going to run out of supplies. That's why they're ordering more than they need. And Kathy would also mention that we're going to get into this situation where a lot of companies basically double or triple order, and eventually we're going to see those commodity prices come back down, inflation fears kind of subside because of the transitory nature of what we're seeing right now. And the Federal Reserve is kind of staying put with this narrative, so you'll notice that reading further. You'll notice how Governor Lael Brainard basically said that patience through this transitory surge, and the big surges lately are partly blamed on the skewed comparisons to the steep drops over a year ago. So only time will tell, what the future looks like for this. If one happens, shit will hit the fan. That's going to drive interest rates to much higher levels. And if you get into a situation where the economy doesn't grow and we're seeing a lot of money supply, then we can also get into this stagflation phase where we're just seeing everything kind of stagnate, right? Economy is not growing. And that's like kind of another really worst case scenario. Out of all the scenarios that we covered, like hyperinflation, stagflation, and deflation, I feel like deflation and stagflation are two things that can really put us in a downward spiral. Hyperinflation for some short period of time can still be contained with the interest rates because they can be pushed up to really high. Of course, equities market is gonna take a hit, but it can still be contained, right, so to speak. So, but I personally don't see like a hyperinflation situation. I see inflation running up a little bit more, and then kind of coming back down. 1974, 1980s, like those right here. Inflation fears were really high. All right, let's listen on this very quickly.
both upside surprises as well as downside surprises in the economic data. Just in the last 10 days, we've seen good evidence of both of that. I don't expect that to change, at least in the near term. But I think the key, I think, as Victoria pointed out, the underlying trajectory of the economy remains on very firm and solid footing. So we just published our mid-year outlook, and our economists call for continued strong growth, because that's effectively our base case, that the global economy that is supported by the largest fiscal stimulus ever, very large monetary easing, and as Victoria pointed out, the highest consumer saving rates in history. You put all these things together, we are we'll add to that a significant rebound in capital spending, and we think we have a high-pressure economy that's well on its way.
Chet and I caught up with me and Lisa a little bit earlier. We caught up with your colleague, Vishy, and talked to him about that hot capex cycle that you guys are anticipating. And what I asked him is whether that actually alludes or at least attributes to the price pressures that we're seeing at the moment, or actually kind of weighs on it and pushes it down. Which one is it?
I think it's a little bit of both. It is not just one or the other thing. It is the pressures we are seeing now, the supply pressures we are seeing, will abate as things will as the effect of the capital expenditure will result in better supply chains. And so some of the supply pressures we think are going to be relatively transitory and will ease over the next few months. But I think the key point is the trajectory of the economy that remains on a very firm foundation and strong economy globally.
I want to turn to Michael McKee. Another week full of Fed speak, perhaps, Michael McKee, and another week being told it's transitory, I assume.
Yeah, you can play that drinking game all week long. The main interesting conversation is today, Rich Clarida, the vice chairman, speaking with Raphael Bostic, the Atlanta Fed chairman, down at the Atlanta Fed Monetary Policy Conference. They're going to give you the same message that we have heard, that inflation is transitory, the inflation we've gotten recently. But that's a question for them, because you look at what's been going on with the inflation expectations, something they watch very closely, and you can see the kink there on the right-hand side as people begin to worry about prices being higher. Now, the blue line is the the one-year inflation, rather, from the University of Michigan survey. People really think it's going to go up. And the question is, will they react to that by trying to get higher wages? Much of what happened in the CPI last week was basically reflation. Almost all of the big inflation numbers came in transportation. And you look at things like airfares, and you see that basically they had been stable for quite some time, and they're just getting back to a profit margin that they can live with. The same with lodging. Once those things happen, the Fed is betting it will all go away. And we do have a big week of data as well, much of it on housing, and housing prices have been going up a lot. We do have existing home sales, and we have the NAHB, the Home Builders Index. The problem with those is that, the good news with those is that we're seeing inflation in housing fall. House prices are still rising, but at a much slower pace. And the other thing everybody's going to keep an eye on is any indicator that gives us an idea of where the labor market is going, because the Fed, of course, has been following that closely. And until we see the labor market tighten up significantly, they're going to say, we're not moving our policy. That's what we're looking at.
That script's not going to change. Mike, thank you. This economy's running hot. Demand is hot. Can supply meet it? We keep going back to that question. Morgan Stanley's Andrew Sheets said the following. He wrote, strong economic winds are bringing complications. It's a hotter, shorter cycle. Just 14 months from the lows, investors face early cycle timing, increasingly mid-cycle conditions, and late cycle valuations. Victoria, this is the real complication right now. Sebastian Page of T. Rowe Price said something similar to me this morning. I've got them written down. We're bullish on the economy. We're cautious on stocks. Can you reconcile those two things for us?
Well, you don't have the different sectors in the economy really all acting in one direction to say we are early, mid, or late cycle. And that's where people are trying to figure out which are the sectors that are really pointing us in the right direction. We think we're probably a little more mid-cycle at this point in time because you're really not seeing those discretionary names, even though they took a short hit last week. You're not seeing them trend lower. You're not seeing that weakness from the consumer or an unwillingness to spend. We're seeing financials do well. So all of these things, plus the trend that we've been talking about already this morning for the markets to move higher, it tells us we're more mid-cycle, and so we think there's still.
All right, so let's take a look at some productivity. So productivity for the United States, you'll notice that it actually went up from fourth quarter 2020 to like the first quarter 2021, right? So we're seeing that from negative 3.8 to well over 5.4 in the first quarter. So definitely productivity is kind of following up to meet up with the amount of demand that we have. Even though the employment numbers only went up from 6, even though actually unemployment rate went up, right? So we're seeing the productivity actually go up just from the existing workforce and the labor force that we have, trying to meet up with the demand. And of course, a lot of the last week's inflation numbers are saying that it was pretty much reflation numbers, so to speak. So with the fiscal stimulus and the monetary policy, we're just going back to the same levels that we were before the pandemic hit. And anything moving forward is going to be a good indication of where inflation stands. Value stocks are overbought. Sell any rally will tip over. Yeah, I mean, I was looking at the forward PEs, right? So this right here actually is a good indication. Thanks for reminding me. So we actually went over this over the weekend. Some really interesting stock market charts, right? So if you go over to these small cap, mid cap, large cap, this is a good representation of growth versus value. So notice that growth is right now trading at 27 levels. And that's the forward PE. That's the forward price to earnings for growth sector, and then value is trading at 17.6. So from historical measures, if you were to kind of draw a line, for growth we're trading at these, and we're nowhere near our 1999-2000 dot-com bubble, right? A lot of people compare that, that right now we're in a bubble and valuations have gone out of hand for growth. Well, we're nowhere near close to where we were, back in the dot-com bubble. But when you look at the valuations for value stocks, actually let me draw that line. Can't even draw a straight line. Yeah, so we were trading at roughly 19 levels, like back then during the dot-com bubble, and right now we're trading at 17.6. So we are, relatively, I would say, a pretty rich valuation for some of those value stocks, especially like in energy and financial sector, in my opinion. They're trading at a little bit of a higher valuation, so to speak. And growth, no doubt, we have those higher multiples for a reason, because it's growth, right? That's why they're expected to trade at a much higher multiple. And value's always been lower multiple sector. But this right here is going to be like the trailing PE ratios, and of course back in 2007, 2008, we kind of capped out at 45 because we went up even higher than that in 2008, and then in 1999, 2000 we kind of capped out at 45. So from historical measures, yeah, we kind of touched briefly highs of like 42 or 43, I want to say. Then we saw a pullback in the first quarter when a lot of the valuations came down, and we saw rotation away from tech and growth. So right now we're in kind of like this moment where I feel like the valuations have come down to a more fair valuation across the board for a lot of companies. Like if you look at large cap, with the earnings potential that they have, I think this is the new fair valuation for these companies, right? We can't expect them to continue to trade at historical 18, 19 forward PEs when they have access to, right now in the current environment that we're in, they have access to such low capital that they can then reinvest back into the business, and they are generating growth, year-over-year growth, hundreds of percent every single year. Mid cap, we saw more significant pullback here, so they were trading all the way to highs of 23 forward PEs, and then a massive amount of outflow. This right here was dangerously overvalued in my opinion. Like small cap became all the way to highs of 27. If you were to kind of compare that from 1999 2000s, we've kind of traded in between this range, right? So this right here was kind of like the range for small caps. And we peaked out all the way to highs of 27. So that was like an incredibly overbought level. And then right now we're coming back to like a fair valuation inside that range. If you look at mid cap, same story, we kind of became a little bit on the overbought side. Large cap, not quite there yet, right? So the large cap was much, much higher back in 1999, 2000s. All right, let's take a look at the market here. So SPY is down about 33 basis points, and the QQQ ETF is down about 0.5% at the moment. And let's take a look at the market. So Mara Riot again taking a little bit of a beating here. BNG is down. Coinbase is at $250 again. It was just a few days ago, it was back over $300, right? This thing is so volatile right now. I mean, just on May 12th, this thing was trading as high as $306, and now it's down like $50 per share. TSMC is down a little bit over 2.6% pre-market here. We got ChargePoint that's down about 2.5%, trading a little bit over $21. Square just hovering over 200 at the moment. By the way, Square also has some type of a head and shoulders pattern, so if I were to kind of mark that out here, you'll notice that we are still making some type of a head and shoulders here, right? So if you see a breakdown below the neckline here, 196, 170 is going to be the next support level to watch. MindMed. All right, let me take a look at what that stock is. MNMD, is that the right one? Up over 11% pre-market. Selects generalized anxiety disorder as initial indication in drug development program. Shares rise. Selected generalized anxiety disorder as an initial indication for Project Lucy, psychedelic medicine company's commercial drug. Yeah, I'm not really familiar with this one, or the biotech space that it belongs to, but we're definitely seeing a little bit of a push higher here pre-market. I can tell you like a resistance to watch today is going to be sitting roughly at 450. So that right there is going to be the level that you want to pay close attention to. Previous resistance that we have gone rejected here, not once but like twice. So a breakout over that level is going to be very important. There's also going to be some mild resistance at close to, I want to say 391 or close to 390 levels. Again, previous resistance that we got rejected here as well. All right. Let's take a look at some cryptos very quickly, shall we? So Doge still trading in between 49 cents and 58. So those right there are going to be the range for Dogecoin. Let's take a look at cryptos. Bitcoin, we actually had a perfect bounce off of 42,000, right? So this right here was the complete breakdown from the technical standpoint. 42,000 is going to be the next support. We did get a little bit of a bounce higher from those levels on around midnight when we retested lows of 42,000 and we pushed up all the way to highs of 46. This right here is going to be the next resistance to watch, and of course 42,000 is going to be the support. What do you guys think about Bitcoin, by the way? Any other upcoming big news or report this week? That's a great question. Not really anything that's going on. Let me actually pull up the calendar for you guys. Actually, I did have something here. Let me see if I still have that. All right, so this right here is going to be the calendar, economic calendar. You guys can go over to this if you guys want to. It's on Bloomberg. Nothing really special other than like couple auctions that are going on. Let me just filter that to the United States. So we're going to clear. We're just going to put United States here and apply. So, all right, so we got Monday, May 17, 2021. We've got FOMC notes that are actually coming out, but we already know what that's going to include because that was, from the prior meeting. We got 3-month bill auction, 6-month bill auction. So FOMC members are speaking. Jerome Powell isn't speaking, who's the Federal Reserve chair, but other members are speaking. So Clarida speaking on, in 49 minutes, and then 10:25 we got another member. 10:25 got another member. But other than that, we got a couple note auctions. We got some earnings. So this right here was a complete morning briefing that I posted on our Discord. So we got earnings today that are going to be for Clover, IDEX, and Purple. And these right there are going to be all the support and resistance levels to watch for different stocks. What goes up will come down. Yeah, so that right there is going to be the complete economic calendar. What do you guys think about Bitcoin and Musk, by the way? Would love to know. And yeah, if there's any Tesla shareholders here too, I would love to know what you guys think, because of course, Tesla has been very involved with Bitcoin and the volatility that we've seen. And it's always a conversation that we need to have, because we need to address any potential, risks. When it comes to investing in general, one of the biggest goals is to minimize risk as much as possible, right? We're trying to minimize risk. We're trying to minimize uncertainty, even though there's a lot of uncertainty in general in the markets with the global economies and, supply chain issues and so on and so forth. But the main goal is to always anticipate future risks and try to kind of minimize it the best we can. So Bitcoin seems rough, but it's fighting the support. Yep, I agree, Jason. It's going to be fighting that support at close to 42,000. Right now, we're in like a complete downtrend because we're trading below the moving averages. So if I were to kind of bring up, let's take a look at the 21, the 50, and kind of remove the 200, right? So it's just been pointing down. So we're just finding that resistance, right? Rejection of the 21 EMA. The pattern is also making lower highs and lower lows. So, it's no surprise that we are seeing a lot of weakness. Another chart that was actually posted by Bloomberg that was really interesting was, let's take a look. So this one, right? This right here was a chart that basically goes over Bitcoin to gold ratio. And this is a chart that we can plot ourselves. If you're using your TradingView platform, all you have to do is come to a blank chart, and let's just use this one. All right, we'll just use this one. So all you do is you do Bitcoin, so that's going to be BTC USD, and then you divide that by gold prices, right? So it'll plot the same exact chart that we looked at. And what this does is this basically gives you an overview of how Bitcoin has outperformed gold, right? So if this is going up, that means Bitcoin is outperforming gold in terms of returns. If this thing is coming down, that means gold is outperforming Bitcoin. And recently you'll notice that as Bitcoin has come down, gold prices have actually gone up. So if I were to pull up gold, you'll notice that we are seeing the gold prices take up higher since, at the end of March, beginning of April. And that's what's driving. This is the real test of inflation and what actually works when inflation spikes. And gold has been, tried and tested over several decades, I want to say. So gold prices are going up as inflation is pushing up. So that's the expectation that investors have. And this is going to be a good estimate, right, as to what Bitcoin is doing relative to gold prices. And again, that relative performance chart for us to see what is outperforming what and where the money's flowing to. So yeah, I'm just reading on Bloomberg, inflation fears weigh on equities. That's been kind of like the whole trend here, but we are seeing a little bit of a recovery from the SPY, up down just about 30 basis points, and the QQQ still down about 48 basis points. I heard that cryptos are acting more like tech stocks rather than act like gold. Yeah, I mean, it's always, it's in my opinion, it's a very premature industry, and I'm not a crypto expert or anything, but we have to understand, in terms of what is the right valuation, what are the intrinsic prices for cryptos in general. Are they a store of value? Are they a currency? Are they a hedge against inflation? Are they a replacement for gold? What exactly, where do they kind of fit in the kind of like the financial system and the global sort of economy, right? That's what everyone's trying to figure out, and there's no right or wrong answer. It's just everyone's perspective on what this sort of like a new asset class is. It's definitely very volatile, right? So it's very speculative in nature, but we just have to understand, how it kind of fits into the broader markets. Yeah, Sile. So I heard that people who are angry due to Bitcoin drop are getting together to short Tesla. You're right, because I'm trying to understand some social cues and some sentiment around Tesla, because when of course, the reason why we're covering it is because Tesla's involved. If Tesla weren't involved, I personally, since I'm not investing in cryptos just yet, don't care about Elon Musk and his involvement in cryptocurrencies. But since Tesla's getting involved, that does beg for a little bit of a risk for Tesla shareholders as well and investors in Tesla, because we've seen a couple different tweets and hashtags going trending, don't buy Tesla or whatnot. So that's the only kind of like a cause for concern I have for Tesla moving forward, is that I don't want Musk to be like basically attracting a lot of short sellers to Tesla. All right, so let's take a look at some other stocks here, right? So Palantir, what do you guys think about Palantir? Down, what is it? Down about 1.5%, back under $20 a share. Tesla getting bought up a little bit, down just about 1.5%. We're just trading over 580. So the resistance right now to watch is going to be $590 per share. And then we got Netflix down about 1.5%. So it's kind of like it's like an okay day, right? Pre-market, we're not like significant sell-off. We're just kind of like down. But as soon as the market's open, we're gonna find out whether we get bought up or we get to see some more weakness, right? What do you guys think? Red or green on the day? Red or green on the day? What do you guys think? Mohammed, I have looked into Ethereum. I'm definitely considering a position on Ethereum here very soon because it's come down significantly now under 3,500. I'm still doing my research on it and kind of like how the smart contracts work, how the technology works behind Ethereum to make a sound decision whether this is good to actually buy in or not. All right, so green all day, Jason says. Brian says red. We got mixed day from Valerie. Red, green, red, red. Harry, I do agree with you. There's so much money in the system. There's also a lot of money sitting on the sidelines. We looked at the savings rate. Cash accounts are flooded. Money market accounts are flooded with cash, and a lot of money that's sitting on the sidelines. So any dip that we see, especially for some of those quality companies like large cap, if they do come down and we see those significant sell-offs, people are going to look at those valuations and be like, those are some really attractive prices. I really want to own Tesla at these levels. I really want to own Apple at these levels. I really want to own Amazon, at these levels. And that's when the buyers kind of step in as more and more people start thinking the same way, and they are going to get bought up very quickly. So I do agree with you on that. It's really kind of like a pick and choose type of market, is that you want to make sure that you're, betting on the right things. Of course, timing is a little bit of an issue here because of the supply chain constraints, but all right, Bill says double red, Fiverr hard red, flat, Monday always red, giving back some of the gains from Friday. So Mustafa says Ethereum is not a buy now. That's interesting. What do you guys think about that? So Ethereum, let's take a look. So just at 3450, we definitely do have some more downside, because of the negative divergence we're seeing and just the lower highs and lower lows being formed. In the downtrending channel, we did get a bounce off the 3,200 support here, but moving forward, the real question is, are we going to see this breakout or not, or if you're going to see a breakdown below 3,200 to kind of continue on this downtrend for Ethereum. But nonetheless, we got about 5 minutes till the market's open, and we have SPY kind of recovering, getting bought up a little bit, and the QQQ are kind of still stalling a little bit, down about 0.5% roughly. Tom says every time it starts red, flips to the green. That's interesting. We'll see if that actually happens today. So, all right. All right. Listen on this very quickly.
500 by about 1/3 of 1%, no drama. Adding to the losses of last week, the Nasdaq off by 0.5 of 1%, down about 67 points. Over in Europe, the FTSE off by 1/3. The DAX, the equity benchmark in Frankfurt, Germany, totally unchanged, dead flat. Here in the United States, let's get you some morning calls and start with some analyst recommendations. First up, a call from Wedbush upgrading Children's Place to an outperform with a street high 150 price target. The analyst seeing an impressive transition, setting the company up for post-pandemic success. That stock is up by about 5%. Next up, Mizuho raising its price target on ExxonMobil to 66, a neutral rating. The analyst expecting strengthening global demand to push crude prices back to pre-pandemic levels by the end of the year. We're down to 60.51 on Exxon right now, down about 0.4 of 1%. And finally, Wall Street responding to the big merger of the day, of the morning. Citigroup upgrading Discovery to a buy after acquiring AT&T's media operations in a deal worth $43 billion in cash to AT&T. Coming up, more on that blockbuster deal. Netflix and Disney preparing for a new challenger in streaming. That conversation up next with JP Morgan's Stephen Parker and Richard Bernstein of RB Advisors. 4 minutes away from the cash open. Equity futures in New York, just a touch lower. This is Bloomberg.
So yeah, Disney pushing up over 9% on the day, and AT&T is also up, I think, over 3%. Just over 3% for AT&T. So we're still off the highs from our pre-pandemic levels, right? It was trading all the way as high as like 40, just close to $40 for AT&T. So we still have a little bit more room to the upside. But we're seeing that divergence here a little bit once again. So look at the Nasdaq ETF ticking down while the SPY continues to push up higher, right? So we'll see how the day kind of plays out. Tesla, 200 moving average at the open, strong bounce or downdraft coming. Looking at the Nasdaq, I won't be surprised if you see a little bit more weakness here. All right, let's set up our charts very quickly. So we're going to come over here. We're actually going to go over to another chart. All right, so we're going to put NEO and Tesla on one. What are some of the other stocks that we should put on there? So I got Tesla on here. We're going to put the 5-minute chart. Ooh, Tesla down over 2% now. Apple down close to about 86 basis points. We haven't talked about Apple in a little bit. Amazon's up over almost 1%. So yep, we're seeing a little bit of a push higher at 32.50. 32.50, by the way, is the resistance that we need to watch for Amazon, right? That's going to be the level to watch. All right, let's put Apple here. So down about 0.5%. PayPal is also down close to 1%. Definitely want to pay attention on that. So retail sales were kind of unchanged in the month of April. So like literally we didn't even go up or down. So that actually does help inflation expectations for now, because a lot of people think that, you know, retail sales, people didn't spend as much money, so we're not going to see as much inflation in the future in the retail space. But all right, let's just switch that up to Palantir. Right, Palantir down a little bit over 1.7% here. We got 30 seconds left for the markets to open. We're gonna put our main watch list here. And the VIX is coming down just a little notch, trading just over 20.4, and we are up over 8.5% for the VIX. All right, let's take a look. So QQQ definitely coming down. All right, let's see if you get any buyers at the open here. So yields up close to about 0.5%. Kind of like a mixed open here at the moment. More stocks are turning red. Oh, there we go. There's the sell-off that's happening for the Nasdaq here at the open. We'll see if the buyers kind of step in. Usually the first 15-20 minutes we do see a lot of volatility, and I more likely prefer the buyers kind of we see like selling pressure come in at the open, like the first 15-20 minutes, and then the buyers kind of step in to push us back. And if you do make a high of day, that's usually a much stronger sign intraday, right? But the SPY continues to push up. Coinbase is down over 5%. Wow. But Nasdaq definitely down about 70 basis points here. I don't want more pain. That's kind of strange, isn't it? Look at the SPY and the QQQ. Like, just look at the difference. Usually what we've seen is kind of like either they both go flat or they move at least in some same direction. But right now we're just seeing like a lot of selling pressure for the Nasdaq ETF and then a lot of buying pressure on the other hand for the S&P 500. Like, it'd be even more interesting if SPY actually turns green on the day, and we're looking at the Nasdaq now down close to 87 basis points. So definitely a lot of selling pressure that's coming through. Let's take a look at some of those stocks. So Palantir is down about 2.3%. We got Amazon up 70 basis points, but we're definitely seeing a little bit of a selling pressure here. Tesla's down close to 2.5%, and we got NIO that's out about 1.2%. Ooh, look at Tesla. It's down 2.4%, and NIO is also contracting a little bit. So, there's the pullback. There's a pullback on the S&P 500, right? So definitely we're seeing those inflation fears kind of kick in once again on the markets. Where's the VIX? Let's take a look at the volatility on the S&P 500. It's up over 8.4%, so it's not like we're seeing a huge spike in the VIX just yet, but yet the market is pulling back a little bit right at the open. Dow Jones is actually flat on the day. How about that? How about the Dow Jones that continues to stay flat and outperforms the other two? So we're pretty much like 12 basis points here. Nicholas says, look at Square. Let's take a look at it. Ooh, look at Palantir. A lot of buying pressure kicked in. Back over $20. Amazon is actually pulling back a little bit, and so is NIO. Square exactly at 200, so we're trading just over 200, down about 3% here. See if that level actually does hold up. But let's take a look. Tesla down over 2%. We got Pinterest down over 2%. Netflix and Nvidia down about 1.7, 1.8% each. NIO, AMD down about 1% each. Apple, Qualcomm, Facebook, Twilio, Visa, Fiverr, they're all in the red. Let's take a look at which ones are actually green. Amazon. Look at that. Amazon's up over 1%. All right, so there we go. We're seeing a little bit of buying pressure here from the Nasdaq. Yeah, open tends to be a little bit of a mess, and I'm more than happy with seeing like the first 15-20 minutes of a pullback here, and then if we can make high of days, that's gonna bode well for like the strength remainder of the day. All right, we'll see if the VIX actually does break out over this middle VWAP here, close to like 324.10. All right, so SPY just made a high of day. That's 415. Frederick, so you're asking, you think there will be a market crash in June due to inflation? I don't think so. There's going to be pullbacks and there's going to be a lot of volatility because of that, but I personally don't see like a crash. And crash, I label it as more than a 20% drop in the S&P and the Nasdaq. I could see more of like a pullback of close to 5 to 6%, maybe, just maybe even a correction if the inflation numbers come in, like much worse than expectations. Then maybe like a correction of just about 10%, but a crash, I don't personally see that for the broader markets, for the S&P or the Nasdaq. Because the market already knows, like it's already expecting, right, in terms of like what the next 12, 14 months are going to look like. That's what it's trying to kind of forecast, because the markets in general are very forward looking. So I personally don't see like a huge crash for that. So inflation will be a concern all the way. Does it mean that we will not be able to see much green for the rest of the year? Yes, inflation will be a concern, but that doesn't mean that we won't see any green. All market really needs is some visibility, right? That's all we need. We just need some clarity in terms of what those numbers are going to look like. And as more and more inflation data comes out, that gets priced into the market. And if it's better than expectations, then we're definitely going to see those rallies. I still believe that once inflation fears kind of subside going into the fall, we'll see like a rally in tech and growth and kind of money flowing back into these names. That's why like now is kind of like the opportunity, as much red as you can see, as much choppiness in some of those trades. It's a good opportunity to kind of position yourself for the time when we do see those booms in those tech and growth names, right? So it's the time to accumulate more and more shares for the companies that you really want to invest in for the long term. So SPY is now almost positive, down about 17 basis points, so almost looking to be green here. And we're seeing QQQ also push higher, down just about 0.5%. All right, so let's take a look at Ether, down about 4% here. Bitcoin just trading under 45,000, and Dogecoin also under 50,000, down about 3.2%, so pretty much flat in between that range. Ooh, look at that spike in the SPY. Almost green. QQ just made a high of day, close to 324, so we're definitely seeing a little bit of a push higher. Look at the buying pressure coming in for Amazon, for NEO, that's now positive on the day. Palantir is now positive on the day. Tesla still needs to do, Square, that's Square down about 2%. Let's take a look at Tesla. Still needs to do a little bit of a work here, down about 1% here. Yeah, so that's a good point. What is your opinion about adding in this market? I'm buying a little bit when I see some attractive prices. That's exactly what I'm doing too. I'm just running a little bit low on cash, so I'm trying to raise more cash exposure to the portfolio. And once I have that available, if there are any deals, any opportunities available in the market, like I'm still looking forward to kind of grabbing more shares of Square and Shopify, some of those companies. Those will be kind of like my next space that I'm gonna get into, is like add more to like the existing positions and start new positions for some of those tech and growth names. And again, that's kind of like the plan here, but I would definitely be mindful of where the broader markets are trading in terms of the S&P 500. Like I said, it's trading a little bit on the overbought side. Even on the weekly chart, the R side does seem overbought. So if you do see a correction for the S&P, if you come down 8 to 10%, in my opinion, that's going to be the best for the markets, right? That's going to bring down the valuation substantially across the board for a lot of companies, and then we can start kind of like this rally together across a lot of different sectors. Because right now it's like a huge divergence, right? 2020 was all about tech and growth. 2021's been all about value and cyclicals. So what we really need is we need to get on the right footing across the board. The market needs to broaden out, and then we need to kind of start pushing higher together. The worst thing that the market can do is be really concentrated on one sector, make it very overvalued, and then once the bubble bursts in that sector, then we see kind of that trickle effect on other sectors as well. And that's why broadening of these sectors is very important. Palantir, Neo green, that's great. Khalid says the crash is coming. I could see that, not like a crash so to speak, but only once the quantitative tightening begins and the degree at which that's going to happen on a macro scale. If the employment numbers don't improve over the next few months, if inflation gets worse, and if Fed changes their narrative, that's what's going to spook the market. That's kind of like the worst case scenario for the markets. Is like inflation numbers get out of hand, and the Federal Reserve, basically comes out and admits that, all right, so we were wrong about inflation being transitory. We're going to raise some rates to basically combat that. That's when I see it being a problem. Otherwise, there's no inherent risk that I see for it to be like a crash. We looked at the dot-com bubble and how prices are creeped up to this level. So if I were to kind of bring up a very simple chart, right? It's going to be QQQ divided by SPY. That's the relative performance chart. Let's go over to the monthlies. And you'll notice that we're trading back at our 1999, 2000 dot-com bubble times, right? We're trading exactly at 0.78. And of course, when the bubble burst, we sold off all the way down until it was a 0.22. And this is a chart that goes over how the NASDAQ has outperformed the S&P for quite some time. And the reason why I don't see like a huge crash in terms of the stock market and the valuations is because this right here, you can easily see that. This was more of a vertical growth, right? We basically, went up like vertically up, as opposed to this right here is more fundamentally driven, right? We've seen more consistent and steady increase. You can make an argument that more recently, however, starting in February and March, this right here was more vertical, That's why we're seeing a little bit of a pullback, right? That's where we're seeing correction here for that. So this is, in my opinion, more fundamentally in valuation driven growth as opposed to this that was completely based on the dot-com hype and the bubble. That's why correction or crash is quite unlikely, in my opinion. Harry, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Let me see if you have a question. Lunch on me, keep up the good work. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. So SPY did push up to all the way as high as 416. We're seeing a little bit of a pullback here, and QQQ's still down just about 0.5%. Let's take a look at some of those stocks. Amazon definitely pushing higher, 1.7% in the greens. And we've got NEO, that's up over 43 basis points. Palantir pulling back a little bit, pretty much flat on the day. All I really need for Palantir is to close above $20. That's it. I don't want it to go to the moon. I just want it to go, literally just close at $20 so we can absorb all the selling pressure that we have seen over the last few weeks. And for it to basically just consolidate sideways for some time. That's it. Just consolidate sideways. Because the earnings were like on par. It was just like very, very decent. They didn't miss anything. It wasn't like very poor reported earnings. It was very good, in fact. And again, they're on track to 30% growth year over year for their top line revenues to over $4 billion by 2025. We'll see if that actually does come into fruition. All right, Tesla down. Let's take a look at some of those stocks here. All right, so Baidu is actually up close to 4%, so we're trading it as 183. And we got 10 Tattooed Chef, that's up over 1.3%. Oh, Talon, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you. I really appreciate you a lot. Thanks for the support. Coinbase down over 6% now. Just trading at 242, low for the day 240. Let's pull up the chart for Coinbase very quickly, right? So yeah, I mean, we've just seen a lot of weakness for Coinbase. It's just been consistently making low and low of low days. It's coming down below the DPO price. What was it? 319, 381 is where it opened when it kind of had this direct offering. We've just been selling off, right? Close to 242. Is there any specific reason? Maybe Bitcoin. That's it. That's the reason why it's selling off. Is Bitcoin. So let's take a look where they're trading. So Bitcoin down 3%, of course, and Ether down over 3.8. They also mentioned they're going to allow Dogecoin trading, right? I think I did see that somewhere. Is that Coinbase is going to allow like Dogecoin purchases? So SPY definitely coming down a little bit, and QQQ is kind of staying up. So we're now kind of like back and forth. All right, NEO up over 1.2%. Are we going to see a breakout over $34? What do you guys think for NEO? When do you see good exit to leave some of those value plays that we have been holding during this rotation? That's a great question. Let me be clear. Values has a lot of, potential in the future, right? We've seen with Warren Buffett, Berkshire Hathaway, they've always been value investors and they've done incredibly well. So there's no reason to, really be this competition between tech and value or like growth and value. A well-diversified portfolio, you can have both sectors. In fact, more, right, to have more diversification. So there's really not really a competition. Of course, timing the market is incredibly difficult. But if you are looking for a much higher anticipated growth or expected returns in the future, of course, that's why growth sectors are going to perform well over time, unless there's going to be the short-term weaknesses where we see growth underperform. But over the long term, like we saw with the relative performance chart, the Nasdaq has continued to outperform the S&P 500. So the whole goal, the whole idea behind growth investing is just going to be dollar cost averaging into your favorite stocks, favorite companies that you wish to hold for the long term. So if you do want to rotate out of value, I mean, we've seen tech and growth names kind of be very suppressed. I mean, a lot of these companies are trading at very, very, low valuations, like 35-40% drops from where they were, back in January or even back in Q4 2020. So, in my opinion, Amazon, AMD, Apple, like those are companies that you definitely may want to look into from the valuation standpoint that are trading at very sweet deals. So VIX is also coming down. Tesla is now almost positive on the day. We need a breakout over 590. That's the level. 589 is the high for the day. We got rejected at that level, so 590 is going to be the one to watch. Sandeep, this is TradingView charts. So this is the charts that we use to analyze the whole market. So the link is going to be down in the description below. Neo 35. So yeah, the first level to break out over 34. That's the resistance. We kind of tapped out at 34 here. That's the high for the day. Amazon's kind of broke out over 32.50. We're almost up over 2%. That's good. And Palantir is also just hovering over $12 or $20, 20 basis points. Let's take a look at Apple. Apple is pulling back here. So 127, that's the resistance, right? So if you were to kind of come over to our main chart, Apple, we talked about how 127 is going to be the resistance, I believe, unless I'm wrong. So 127, yeah, that's going to be the level to watch for Apple because we gapped down. And we just literally got tapped at 126.93. So Apple needs a breakout over 127. Tesla needs a breakout over 590. Neo needs a breakout over 34. Amazon needs to stay above 32.50. Palantir needs to stay above 20. Square needs to stay above 200. AMD needs to stay above 74. Where's AMD trading? I hope it didn't break down below 74. Alright, so it's up over 70 basis points. We're seeing a little bit of buying pressure come in. So $75. DJI getting weakness. Let's take a look. So, yep. So Dow Jones down about 30 basis points, whereas the NASDAQ is up or down just about 40 basis points. S&P, look at that, down about 30 basis points. So we're seeing complete rotation once again. It's kind of strange market here, right? SPY continues to sell off here, and QQQs continue to push higher. Dan, levels to watch for AMD, $74 support, and resistance is going to stay put at close to $84. So let me break that down on the weekly chart. So AMD is still forming some type of a head and shoulders pattern, so I would be very mindful of that. But in terms of levels, keep a close eye at this $74 support right here, and of course the resistance, the first ones are going to be sitting right aligned with these moving averages. $78 all the way as $80 a share. Nvidia, so Nvidia, let's take a look. Nvidia support 550, resistance 575. Let's see where it's trading. So we're kind of like in the middle. It's not really doing anything, so 550 is a support, and 575 is going to be the resistance, right? That right there is going to be the two levels to watch. Nvidia also has come down quite a bit, right? So literally we're just down about 13% from all-time highs. It is volatility market for a drop. Rotation from value to tech could be. We'll see if that actually does happen, because SPY definitely seeing a lot of weakness here. Right, we're seeing a lot of pullback. Of course, the NASDAQ continues to make a little bit moves higher. Still not green on the day, but Dow Jones coming down close to 40 basis points. All right, let's take a listen to this.
You've got to put some money behind that political analysis, and I'll go back to something you asked yourself about 10 minutes ago. Do you think the Democrats will be successful? Do you think the policymakers will be successful? And if you think they will be, where do you put the money with that in mind?
All right, they're just talking about politics right now. So SPY, Dan, you're welcome. Dan, SPY's down a little bit over 40 basis points now. Definitely seeing a lot of selling for both Dow Jones and the S&P, but now the Nasdaq is coming down a little bit as well. All right, let's take a look at these stocks here. Amazon staying up there, Palantir back down below 20, NEO's down back below 34, and we've got AMD just hovering over 74. All right, guys, so I'm gonna actually end the live stream here. So let me see. Do you think Tesla crossing over 590? It really depends on this right here. The one index that we need to watch is the Nasdaq. If you continue to see a sell-off here, then Tesla is gonna sell off as well. So let's take a look. So Tesla just again 589.73 is the resistance. We got a test here, right here, literally on this candle. But we're seeing that act as a resistance, right? So NEO back below 34. That's the level to watch. So give you guys a very quick update. Tesla watch 590, NEO watch 34. For Amazon, it needs to close above $32.50. For Palantir, it needs to close above $20. And again, if you guys want to get access to all these different support resistance levels, I put out a complete list over here on the support resistance and the stocks that I'm watching and the support resistance for them as well. The earnings that are coming up, cryptos, market, oil briefings, everything as well is going to be included in the Discord. If you guys want to get access to that, the link is going to be down in the description below. Would love to have you guys as members. Thank you so much for joining in. I really, really appreciate your guys' support. Make sure that you drop a like. It really helps out the channel. And I hope you guys have a great day. And hopefully the markets, if not today, I know that sometime this week they will turn green, and we are potentially, in my opinion, going to close the week on a green note, even though we're starting off on a bad footing. But let me know in the comment section down below if there's any other stocks or cryptos you want me to analyze and look into. And that being said, happy investing, and I will see you guys in the next live stream.